West is one of those games that should have been done a long time ago. It's a game where the concept is so ingeniously intelligent that you think at least someone would have realized that it was a match made in heaven. I mean, you take Fallout's wacky shenanigans and insane antics and you apply it to the Wild West. What's not to love about that idea and its concept? Desperados was a great example of a game that was great on its own, but it was just missing that weird and over-the-top feeling you get from a Fallout game. It was so close to figuring out the formula that Weird West went for, so the question now is, did they nail it? Before I dive deep into this review, I just want to ask anyone who enjoys the content on this channel to do me a favor and subscribe. And if you haven't seen any of the content, if after you watch the video you enjoyed it, please drop a like on it. Every little bit helps, especially since this is a new channel. Weird West's story is fairly straightforward, and without spoilers, you're an individual who is strapped to a chair being accosted and forced through some weird sorcery to inhabit the lives of other characters. There's portraits that directly link to these characters, and each act is essentially your playthrough of said characters in the same universe or timeline. You've got to go through their individual stories and complete a certain key task through any means you deem necessary, good or evil. You get 5 of these acts in total, and I won't say more than that, but there's an incredible amount of suspicious and intriguing story and quest lines that you can come across while playing each individual character themselves. You can even recruit characters from these previous acts to be your companions and follow you around, which will give you even more insight into what's going on. This also allows you to keep your previous gear and skill points, which I'll explain more later, but either way, it's cool. The story itself is incredibly captivating and solid, probably the best aspect of the game, and I played through the entire way with my motivation being to hear and find out more because it was enjoyable. It really gave me Fallout 2 vibes as far as how things were written and done, and I gotta say it's been a long time since I could say that about a video game. Decisions you make and people you help genuinely matter in your playthrough, so yay, finally some permanence in a game for what you choose to do. I might as well mention them now. There's a ton of side quests that are all related to the characters you're playing at the time, with most of them giving more information on what's going on in the world that you're part of. Some side quests will chain into new side quests based on what you did on previous characters, but on the new characters, really creating this sort of dynamic interlinked destiny between acts. Visually, this game isn't that superb looking, but the style they went for definitely fits a Wild West theme. It's almost comic-like in the way it looks, and it fits the game really well. I think the entire theme of the game being dark and evil, but not looking dark and evil visually works great. Obviously, you've got your western towns and locals, but there's far more messed up and crazy places that you can visit. Every single place you go to seems well put together, especially some of the dungeons and secret locations, and the only complaint I really have stemming from the visuals and designs is that every building looks the same in the towns. Yep. Every building in town seems to be placed from other towns, but that's okay, as the quests and the NPCs in them are completely different each time. Effects of the firefights, explosions, and anything involving all that look good and fit the theme, with some powers later on having really trippy effects themselves and just lending overall in a positive way to the style of the game. I can't remember the last top-down RPG I played that chose a graphical style that fit their narrative so well, but Weird West definitely does that with flying colors. One downside as far as voicing goes is that although there's great dialogue in the game in the form of text, there's no voiced characters outside of the narrator. The narrator himself is fantastic in every aspect of his speech throughout the game, but I would have definitely liked to hear quest givers and key NPCs talking, or at least the main characters be voiced for each act. Unfortunately, this isn't the case and it's a bit of a letdown, but again, the main narrator is good enough that it's not too much of a blemish. The narrator gave me a big Bastion sort of narration vibe throughout the playthroughs that I went through, and that was cool, and I loved Bastion, so it was nice to see something so similar in a video game in 2022. It truly captures that Fallout-esque method of quick saving and quick loading when you're wanting to do something insane and fail, only to try to do something even more insane and succeed the next time. There's pretty much no limitations in what you can do or who you can kill, and that's crazy to me. Key NPCs don't have immortality as far as I found, and every single person was expendable. That's great gameplay design. You can take however method you want to play through, being an action hero, a stealth archer sort of class, a thief, a goon, whatever. It's possible and will change your combat approach. Skill trees and talents exist for the playable characters of each act, with each individual character having unique ones, further increasing your ability to play how you want. Fair warning is that specific skills don't carry over between acts. The purple skill points, which you gain by picking up items in world, they don't carry over, but the golden card ones do. The golden card points are flat bonuses like more gold, better allies, better sneaking, so on and so forth. So you're not really taking big steps back when you progress into a new act and lose the previous character. Honestly, the approach I chose for most of the game was to just be a murder hobo psychopath that robs everyone and kills everyone in a town. It was cool, and I definitely enjoyed doing that on my first playthrough. Combat is very arcadey and in real time. The best way to describe it is that Weird West functions like a twin stick shooter. You have multiple weapons that have abilities tied to them specifically that you unlock, which allow you to fight in various methods. Shotguns, for example, have explosive rounds and a mode that lets them fire full auto without reloading, while a rifle has suppressed shots and whatnot, allowing you to play more stealthy if you prefer that sort of style. Any gun, regardless, will be aimed at and fired at enemies who have static health pools, with matrix dodging being a thing to help you deal with hairy situations when the need arises. It's very combat role type of combat oriented with cover in mind, although no cover system really exists, and even the hardest enemies can be beaten if you just plan out your attack and utilize the skills that are available to you. Throwables and other items are another tool at your disposal. Dynamite, Molotovs, etc., all lootable in world and used to give yourself an advantage when you're outgunned or outleveled. Fire is a true friend in Weird West. I used it a lot, and I was always spamming my consumables to do crazy things, be it healing through insane damage or killing enemies with stacking explosives. As far as upgrades go in Weird West, the quality of guns only really affects the damage, which is at best just alright, with no special upgrades or anything like that existing of any sort. I looked around and couldn't find anything unique either with superpowers or special abilities or anything on those guns. It just went from green to blue to purple to legendary, with each upgrade only doing slightly more damage. I wish there was a better system. This was a letdown as far as the gear system goes, as the potential to do incredible things existed in this universe, and they just didn't take the shot at doing so. Imagine Borderlands type weapons in the Weird West with custom abilities and effects based on random rolls. It would have been so cool, especially with the occult storylines. Companions are recruitable that will do their own abilities and assist you in combat in various ways, although they're not invincible and can permanently die. You could change their equipment and put whatever you want on them to make them fight at certain distances. They're useful, and I found them completely necessary for a few engagements. One downside, though, to companions, and a general downside to the game I'll talk about now, is that their AI is absolutely atrocious, and they will, without a doubt, cause you to save and reload 100 times over during your playthroughs. When I say the AI is atrocious, I mean they seemingly only have two modes of operation: run towards enemies and shoot wildly and hope not to die, or stand behind something and accomplish nothing. I lost so many companions and had to reload so many times just due to how awful the AI for them is, and it's a dang shame because it was the single most frustrating thing in the entire game. Enemy AI is no better, with most of them being complete jokes in their own rights, sometimes even just ignoring you and staring off into the distance as you shoot them in the face. The AI in general in Weird West is just so mind-bogglingly stupid that I feel like it definitely needs to be patched to make them less dumb ASAP, and it super detracts from the game if you care about those things. This leads right into the technical discussion of the game, which for me was a bit of a nightmare. I didn't get to finish it before release, so I was able to check and see if the bugs I experienced on the press version were still present in the public version, and they were. The biggest culprit of these technical issues involved saving and reloading, with NPCs literally coming back from the dead. I mean bad guys that you've already killed. There were multiple times where I quick saved to do something and reloaded to undo a failure, only to notice that bodies had come back to life NPC positions had changed, and I was stuck in an infinite death loop suddenly because they were shooting me. I noticed these problems also extended to enemies suddenly becoming like civilian flagged status and giving you bounties for hurting them or shooting them, even if you were supposed to kill them, which really sucked. I'm not sure if it was just my save that broke somehow, but this happened non-stop and all the time, and it felt like I really couldn't enjoy the freedom of save loading as was intended without reality falling apart. I also had some crashes and texture glitches, and quests bug out consistently due to the previous, save loading bug, which plagued me throughout my playthrough. Overall though, I gotta say my experience with Weird West was pretty good. All the issues I had with it were easily outshined by the freedom the game offered, and the main story being so dang engaging. Combat was fun and enjoyable for the most part, with the only majorly annoying things being those technical mentioned issues before and the AI, which held it back at the time. I think the fact that I want to do a second playthrough soon speaks for itself. I enjoyed it, but hey, let me just break the game down for a final score like I usually do. Gameplay is a solid 8 out of 10. Combat's fun, character customization is good, exploring the map is fun, it's all good. Better crafting and gear would have improved it more though. Story is an outstanding 9 out of 10. I loved the different acts and viewpoints as I played through, and the ending did justice for it all. It was great that your choices mattered. Graphics get a 7 out of 10. They're not the best by any means, but they're good and suit the theme of the game quite well. Audio gets a 6 out of 10. It was above average and got carried by the narrator, but was nothing to brag about, and it could have done so much more with actually having NPCs and main characters being voiced. And finally, value gets an 8 out of 10. I got about 30 hours out of it on my first playthrough, and I want to go through again with different choices. You just can't complain about $40 for over 50 hours of content. With all that in mind, my final score for Weird West is going to be an 8 out of 10, and I suggest you pick it up and give it a try. I'd say I suggest it even more to the fans of the old Fallout 1 and 2 games. It feels very similar and scratched an itch I had for a long time. Great job, devs, and awesome game. Anyway, that's it for Weird West. Let me know what you personally thought of the review in the comments, and be sure to engage with one another. I read through most of the comments on these reviews, and your opinions always matter. Plus, if you enjoyed the video and liked this review, why don't you just hit the like button? It helps tremendously, as I've said, with the channel being less than 2 months old. Suggest it to your friends if you think they'd like it as well. Every new person helps. That's it for this video. Until the next one, I'll be seeing you. Bye.